Hello and welcome to When They Popped. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Mary, and today we're thrilled to welcome a true visionary who has shaped the visual landscape of pop culture for over 3 decades. He's the creative mastermind behind some of the most iconic music videos of all time, from Backstreet Boys' Larger Than Life to Britney Spears' Toxic to Taylor Swift's Grammy-winning Bad Blood. Joseph Kahn has directed over 180 music videos, working with everyone from Eminem to Lady Gaga. His futuristic cinematic approach helped define what Y2K pop culture looked like, creating visual masterpieces that became cultural phenomena and racked up billions of views worldwide. Beyond music videos, Joseph is also a filmmaker with movies like Detention, Embodied under his belt, and he has a brand new film called Ick hitting theaters next week that we were fortunate enough to get an early screening of, and we're so excited to dive into all of it with him. Joseph Kahn, welcome to When They Popped.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. What a great intro.
Oh, well, you deserve everything that's in there. We're so excited to get into it with you. Let's start with Ick. Now, this movie is hysterical. It's so funny, so witty. It's set in small town America. It's equal parts monster movie mayhem and satirical take on modern day society tendency to normalize and ignore obvious dangers. So this film's coming out theatrically July 27th to 29th. Tell us about it. Tell us about your inspiration. How was this born?
It started with a very simple idea in that I wanted to make a monster movie for everyone because I feel like horror is in a weird space where it's very popular, but it's very gruesome. If you want to watch a horror movie, you've got to start almost at the most bizarre place, like a Terrifier movie where bodies are getting ripped apart and they're just so gross. And I know as much as popular as horror is, there's a lot of people that don't like horror because it's scarring. It's torture for a lot of people. But I don't remember that being the case for every horror movie back in the day. There are things like Gremlins. There are things like The Blob that felt like horror films that were safe to watch. That doesn't mean that they're not scary. That doesn't mean that they're not sophisticated. It just meant that the main objective is not just to disturb you, but to have some fun. So I wanted to make a creature feature, a monster movie that you could take a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old to, or you could enjoy as a 45-year-old for different reasons.
Yeah.
So I made a movie that I felt is broader and, just like one of my videos, young people can watch it, old people can watch it. It's for everybody. A horror film for everybody. What a weird concept, right?
I love the homage to the Blob in the film. That's so funny that you mention it.
Thank you.
We saw that you've talked about Spielberg films like Jaws and Jurassic Park, and how, like you said, it's a horror movie, but when you watch Jaws, it's actually kind of funny at the same time. How do you find that balance without making it a little too funny or a little too scary? Where's the line?
Well, I do think that horror and comedy come from the same place because they're both shocking. It's just, I think that comedy is a scare you agree with and horror is a scare that you disagree with.
Oh, I love that.
So they're both shocking. It's just one resolves itself in a laugh and the other resolves itself in a scream. So the movie is really just doing two things. It's constantly shocking you, and sometimes you agree with those shocks and sometimes you disagree with them. It's just bouncing back and forth, but it's essentially coming from the same place. That's why some people might watch this movie and go, I'm exhausted at the end of it because my body feels like it just went through the ringer. But it's because it's constantly cajoling you into one reaction or the other.
That's a great segue to our next question because some of the reviews of Ick have called it, quote, pure sugar caffeine rush. And it's like drinking a bunch of coffee, eating candy, and immediately making a movie. That's how they described your filmmaking style and really describing the kinetic energy of it all. And it felt like that. It felt like we're going from scene to scene. You never stay in one shot for very long. We can never get too complacent where we are until the next thing is happening. Is that a signature part of your style? How do you describe that?
I used to be accused of being an MTV director back when MTV existed. But here's the thing. I've been making videos for 35 years. That means I've been pretty much making it almost at the start of MTV. So am I an MTV director or does MTV have my style?
Oh, I love that.
This is the way I make things. And it may be fast for some people, but I always felt like I'm calibrating it for people like me, people that watch a lot of things, that keep up to date with current technology. And for me, social media has never been a negative thing. It's always been a positive way of communicating. I'm interested in the way people communicate. And movies got faster because of MTV. movies got faster in general. And now with social media and things like TikTok, where things are only like 15 seconds long, media has changed. And so I wanted to make sure that my particular revamp of an 80s movie, where the 80s were revamping 50s movies and made them faster, well, I'm revamping 80s movies and making them faster for a generation today. And that actually comes with two interesting things that happen to it. The first thing is, people don't really expect to watch a movie and pay attention for 2 hours now because they're slow. So you text, you talk to people, you pause it, you do other things. If you miss it, you just rewind it. So that's a very different experience of watching a movie than before. And so what I did is I made a movie that you have to pay attention to. That like every scene, every shot, every little setup, every joke, if you're not paying attention, you'll get lost. And that is a gambit. Because what I'm asking you to do is, one, I'm going to give you the movie at the speed that you think you should be watching. But now, please pay attention. Because now you've got a reason to pay attention. There's no reason to pay attention to other movies. But on this one, I'm making it a speed that hopefully is calibrated for the modern viewer. And now the modern viewer, all I'm asking for them is pay attention.
I mean, the soundtrack, I was sad. I was like, the film style, but I mean, that soundtrack, this movie takes place in sort of like a 2000 set. There's so much millennia nostalgia in there. I mean, within the first 3 minutes, we get All American Rejects. We got Hoobastank. If my count is correct, I counted 2 Good Charlotte songs. We got Dashboard Confessional. I mean, how important was the music to this story when the main character, he's stuck in his nostalgia for his high school football glory days? Would love to hear how you took that music into consideration to tell this story.
It first stems from the idea of making a movie like this and what is the movie about. And if you remember, like a lot of the Spielberg Amblin movies, which this is based off of, they were all about families. And from the 80s perspective, when I watched this, I always watched it from the perspective of the kid. And it was always about broken families. Divorce was a new thing that was really sort of accelerating in the 80s, latchkey kids, things like that. And on this one, I was like, okay, so I'm going to make a movie about the new kids. But who are the new parents? The new parents are millennials. That's the truth. Like the millennials are now the old people. And for the longest time, millennials were like the bratty little kids that everyone complained about and said, they're out of control, they're vapid, they're this, they're that, which they said about, every generation beforehand, right? And now Gen Z's getting that, So now looking at it from the perspective of Gen Z, now they get to see what their parents are like, what music they listen to. And guess what? As modern as some of these songs sound, like the All American Rejects and all that, these songs are like 20 years old. That's a generation. That's a generation.
Oh my God.
That hurts. So I wanted to make a movie about generation gaps. I wanted to make a movie about growing old and being young. I wanted to make a movie where the millennials could actually finally feel their age for a second. But hold on, not to depress you. It's to make you feel both young and old, but at the end of the day, good.
I think you definitely achieved that. Kelsey and I both really felt good and enjoyed getting to screen the movie. I would love to ask about the cast. Could you tell our listeners about the wonderful group that's in this movie and how they came together?
Well, I love the fact that I'm making an independent movie off the system. And because it's basically independent money, we can do whatever we want. We're not tied to studios. We're not tied to marketing agendas. We're not tied to anything else other than telling a good story. And having said that, I like casting the best person for it. It's about a guy that starts off in the 2000s and he's on top of the world. He is literally the guy in the 2000s that was the alpha male. By the way, this guy doesn't exist anymore. Like the media has completely erased this guy. But he existed back then. He was the football player. He was walking around school. All the girls loved him. He had the hottest girl in school, high-fiving people, famous, breaks his leg. 20 years later, he's not Tom Brady. He's just a teacher back in high school. And I wanted to tell a story about that. So who looks like Tom Brady? Who is a guy that should be Superman, but now has a broken leg? So I actually got Superman, Brandon Routh of the 2000s. I break his leg in the movie, and he's walking around with a limp, this beautiful masculine dude walking around emasculated and now being generation gap by the new version of him. And then he's pining for a girl that still, after 20 years, he's still thinking about. So I'm thinking in my head, who would you pine for in the 2000s? Who is a girl that is so devastatingly awesome that 20 years later, it just reverberates and kind of ruins your life? And they made a movie about this girl. It was called American Beauty. She's on a poster. It's Mina Suvari. And I was like, okay, maybe I should get Mina Suvari, but I'll never get Mina Suvari, so I'll try to get someone like Mina Suvari. Well, I didn't get anyone like Mina Suvari. I got Mina Suvari. So for me, I think it was like perfect casting. Superman with a broken leg pining for American Beauty. That's a movie.
And I mean, the young talent in the movie, they were all so talented too.
Yeah, Melina Weissman. When it comes to 18-year-old actresses or actors, you really don't have a lot of stars in that age bracket, maybe a couple Disney stars here and there. But that's not really a world where you have a lot of credits and they turn into stars. Usually stars need like 5 or 6 years to build up their fan base, and then they can sell movie tickets. And when they sell a lot of movie tickets, they do that. So again, she had a lot of great credits and she had a lot of things. But I really cast her because irrespective of her being on that Lemony Snicket show for Netflix, she was clearly the best actress. She was actually the first person that I casted. And what was interesting about her is that she didn't play it comedically. She played it very straight and real. And a lot of the actresses came in here, tried to make their role really funny. And she trusted the script. She trusted the scenarios. She trusted the reality of the situation that itself is absurd. One of the things that a friend of mine said after he saw the movie is that it may be the first movie where a girl finds out that she may not be Asian.
Oh my God.
That's so funny.
All of those storylines, it really was so funny. And there was so much going on, but it also had, like you said, it's still a horror movie. I had this little bit of anxiety the whole time because of this allegory, the ick. It's this thing, this disgusting figure that has been growing in this town for over 20 years, and people are just ignoring it despite it becoming more and more pervasive in their everyday lives until finally it reaches this crazy, visually beautiful head, if you will. And I mean, this allegory could really be anything, any of the anxieties that our generation has faced. Like, I thought of like climate change. Like, some people could look at this and think of COVID. But it just seemed like there were so many things that you could apply to the ick that it's almost like this perfect blank slate for whatever it is that you're worried about right now.
You are so on target, and I love your perspective on it because it was actually written before COVID, believe it or not.
Wow. The Walmart scene hit, or no, it's not Walmart in the movie, but that hit real hard.
Yeah, it's small mart, but we know what we know. I think one of the things about it is that it treats the monster from a modern perspective. Back in the old days, when you made a monster movie, they were always about something specific. Godzilla was the atom bomb. King Kong was the fear of the primitive. Dracula, look at Dracula. He walked around town and people closed their doors. And if you invited him in, what would he do? Come in there and have sex with your wife, So that was the fear of like the foreigner. But now, what does a monster mean today? Because all those monsters back then had one similarity, which was, what if they came to your town and the people would bond together and try to fight this monster? Well, we have seen what happens when the monster comes into town because we have seen the monster come into town. It actually has taken over town. For instance, 9/11, a monster came into town, knocked down our Twin Towers, and COVID comes and, locks us up for a year and all that. But you know what happens? And every single time these things happen now, we react for a couple weeks and then we move on. We forget about it. We just try to live our lives. Now, that may be a sign of incredible stupidity, or it might be a sign of human survival instinct that we have to live with tragedy. That line of whether it's stupidity or survival, I don't know that line, but my movie doesn't want to answer that question. It's simply satirizing the existence of how absurd our lives are. And the other thing also is that back in the 50s, when those monsters came, the town always bonded together. Today, if that monster attacks, everyone splits apart into their own little political factions and argues with each other. And it's no longer bonding experiences. It's these things that sort of magnify our differences. So that was part of the thing about the ick. That's why I think people want to ignore the ick, because we do that in real life because it's so complicated today.
Right. Oh my gosh. I was kind of speechless for a minute after watching it because I just thought, you're so right. We think that in these moments we'd come together, like post 9/11. It seemed like that brought us together, but it's almost like the internet, what have you, social media, we are all living in our own algorithms, more growing apart in our own little echo chambers now.
Absolutely. In fact, he actually calls it an algorithm in the film.
It was brilliant. I was laughing out loud multiple times. I mean, between the soundtrack, how quickly it was moving, and also just the ick was so gross. Like, what was the inspiration for that?
Well, it's based on a lot of different... It's got a combination of, obviously, The Blob, The Thing. I would also say there's a vampire element to it with light and a zombie element. It's kind of like taking little pieces of all the monsters and creating one thing. And then there's also two other things to it. One is that there is an insect-like feel. When I studied insects, the thing that grosses you out about insects is how they go from one place to another really fast. And that freaks you out. Like when you look at an insect itself, When it's standing still, you think it's gross. But when it suddenly goes from here to there really fast, that's when you start freaking out. That movement freaks you out. So the ick does the same thing. It goes from here, but then when it moves really fast, that's the ickiest thing about the ick. But then, there's one other thing too. I did not want to make it in a way that little kids will get scarred by this thing. So there is an element of fakeness about it. And it's designed in it because when I look at Frankenstein, I look at those aren't real creatures. There is a movie magic feel to it. So it was always hard to try to make sure that the ick itself had a little bit of movie magic to it because I don't want kids going to bed with nightmares or anybody. It's not that type. I'm not trying to make like a seriously hardcore R movie. It's not meant to be. It's supposed to be fun for everybody.
I think you absolutely achieved that. And we read it in an article, you did an interview about the film and you mentioned that you were writing this while you were even doing some music videos for Taylor Swift. How long did this movie take? You said you wrote it before COVID even happened. It sounds like this has been in the works for a while. Can you tell us about the process?
I met with a writer and he and I beat it out the story. He wrote the draft and I had another writer come in there. Then I wrote it. It's just a long process of coming up with stuff and revising it. And even as I was shooting it, I was revising the script and feeling it out. For me, when it comes to the sort of conception of this stuff, even when I'm on set on music videos, it's never a locked in stone situation. I'm always sort of observing and feeling what that stone's turning out to. And I'm notorious for a guy that turns in his stuff at the very last minute because I tweak until they literally pull that stuff out of my hands. And even in this movie, even though I shot it 2 years ago, I was tweaking it until about 2 weeks ago, like still doing visual effects until they finally said, Joseph, we must print.
I had a question. This is kind of a surface level question. How did you decide to call your monster the Ick?
Okay, so we had this title before it turned into a synonymous term for things that make you turn off guys.
I wondered.
I say I have the ick like 18 times a day, so it's so timely.
I mean, I was actually shocked when it turned into that because in my mind, when I started it, the word ick was something I would always say to myself, like ick, gross, that's icky. It was like analogous to like cooties or something, But then somewhere around 2023, it turned into this meme of girls finding guys unattractive because they ate wrong or they did their hair a weird way or something like that. But I still think even with that particular context, it still works. Although I will say I have seen on the internet some guys absolutely swear off my movie because they feel like they're getting picked on. They think I made a movie about males getting gross and they just don't like the word ick because they're personally feeling insulted by that. And I think that if that's you have some serious problems that go beyond that movie.
Yeah, that's a them issue for sure. Oh my gosh. So can you tell our listeners, this is coming out in theaters the 27th to the 29th?
And it's actually on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We have an exclusive 3-day window. It's July 27th, 28th, 29th. That's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's basically one showing a day. It is in about 800 screens, so most likely it's somewhere playing in your town. But go to Fandango, look up Ick, go to Fathom Events, go to anything, and you'll see that there's one showing in your town. And this movie, yes, you can possibly wait for video at some point, which I haven't set that deal up yet. But I highly recommend you watch it in a movie theater because it's mixed in a way that if you're sitting in a dark room with another audience member and you hear all my sounds, because, I really designed this with when the music blasts and you're hearing these 2000 songs and I'm intermixing the ick like crawling around your theater and it's on a big screen. It's an experience. It really is. I've been making films for so long and I really think this is an experience. I cannot wait for people to see it.
Oh, well, Kelsey, we need to go see it in theaters. Listeners, if you're listening to this podcast, you would love this movie. So please make sure you find where it is in your city or town and go see it. But we wanted to get into your career a little bit. Is there anything else we should talk about the movie before changing that direction a little bit?
No, let's switch directions. What do you want to know?
Everything.
Everything, first of all. But let's go back to the beginning. Like, was this always your goal since elementary school, since college, to get into films? Like, how did you find yourself here?
So I was born in Korea and we moved out when I was 3, but we moved to Italy. And I was in Italy for a couple years and I was speaking Italian before I spoke English. When I came to America, it was funny. I learned how to make visuals or speak languages of visuals on movies. It's like watching movies was how I learned English. And because I think English was a little harder, the visuals was the main language I learned. So I learned how to speak English and visual simultaneously through movies. So I feel more comfortable on a certain level speaking cinema language than I do any language. Okay. But at a certain point, I remember discovering rock and roll. And the first time I ever heard a rock and roll song, the first time I ever heard one was Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll. And the way I heard that was through a music video. I saw it on Saturday morning television, and it was a black and white video, and she was wearing black leather. And I was floored. I was like, what is this music? What is this woman? What's happening in this bar? And by the way, apparently I watched a different version because there was also a color version where it turned out her suit was actually red. But that's the way I got introduced to rock and roll music. So I'm one of the first generations that never ever heard of rock music without video. So it's an expectation of mine from the very beginning that all great music must have a music video to it. And I remember like being obsessed with music videos at that point. There was a thing before MTV started, a thing called Friday Night Lights, no, Friday Night Videos. And so like after like say 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock or something like that, they'd play all the latest music videos. So it was the only way to watch before MTV. And I would stay up and I would watch like these epic videos by Billy Idol, and big film directors were doing that. I remember like when Michael Jackson came out with Thriller and what a seminal event that was and how that blew my mind. And this sort of rhythm of music, I was just attracted to it. Weirdly enough, one of the earliest films that was one of my favorite films of all time was Grease 2. Because
That's hilarious.
I remember like hearing the soundtrack all the time and listening, and I couldn't watch it on cable. And then I have this vague memory of actually watching MTV turn on. I think it's a fake memory, but maybe it's real. I don't know. But I remember like seeing MTV turn on, and I just knew by the time I went to film school, and I was obsessed with movies for sure, but the entire idea of doing music videos was an obsession of mine. And I was making music videos in high school. In fact, not to make myself sound so super lame, but like as a little Asian kid in Texas, you're around all these pretty girls. And this is back in the 80s before everybody thought Korean guys were hot, like with K-pop stuff. So that still blows my mind. I don't know what's going on over there, because I was the only Asian dude I knew was like on TV or movies, and he was like Long Duck Dong or whatever, like trying to hit on girls with funny accents and stuff. So no girl wanted to date me. But I remember making these music videos, and all of a sudden I was walking down the hallway and all these cheerleaders suddenly said, "Hi, Joseph," out of the blue. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a doctor. This is ridiculous. So
You clearly made the right choice. I mean, at this point, you've won Grammys, VMAs, Emmys. Can you take us back to the first music video you did?
well, that's not very exciting of a story because it starts off like in the hood, in the ghetto. I'm just like this little kid running around with a video camera, making videos for gangster rappers. And I did 1.5 years of that. And really all that came down to was I was the only guy available. Everyone else was too afraid to make gangster rap videos. I was too stupid. I had no idea that gangsters were real. I thought when they were talking about gangsters, it was like the movies I was watching, like The Untouchables. I had no idea when they're talking about drugs and prostitution, all these things. I thought, well, that's not real. Those are only in the movies. I literally thought that in my head. No one really does drugs. These are things that you see in the movies. And I was just shooting these videos, and they would literally take me to like some mound and say, this is where somebody died. Now shoot that. And I would photograph that, and I would recreate a murder scene, not really realizing that that was actually a real story.
This is going to be played in court one day.
Kidding you. I remember like I would be waiting for people to get out of jail so I could shoot them, you know? And I was having this experience for 1.5 years. That's how like socially unconscious I was. I was just a nerd wanting to make movies. And I did that for 1.5 years. And I ended up doing like 30 of those videos until I finally said, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. And then within 1.5 years of moving to Los Angeles, I was known as the gangster rap guy. And then I started doing R&B videos. And I remember around 1997, the record company calls me up because they said, okay, so now we have this white boy band. And we think of them as the White Jodeci. Now, Jodeci was this black group that was basically sang a bunch of sex songs, right? And I listened to the song, and I'm like, this is not Jodeci. And then I look at these guys, and this is not, like, they're not sex boys. These are 5 little Michael Jacksons. And so I'm going to write a Michael Jackson concept. So I wrote Backstreet's Back. I wrote it basically as my own thriller, right? And I met up with the Backstreet Boys, and they were completely aligned with me. Zero interest in doing the super hardcore sex stuff that the record company was asking for. We made our little Michael Jackson video. And that actually started this whole thing because before that, I was in the world of gangster rap or grunge. That was the record business when I entered, and they weren't making pop videos. And then all of a sudden I did Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and things like that. And the pop explosion happened because I was trying to make these videos that reminded me of the videos in the 80s that got me interested in the videos in the first place. The pop stuff, the Madonna, the Janet Jackson, the George Michael and all that. And now I got to redo that and do my versions with these new pop stars in the 90s. And that's how that started.
Joseph, we would love to talk to you about some of those videos because Mary and I grew up glued to our television sets, waiting for the music videos that you created to come on the screen so we could learn the dances. Like, we are both huge Backstreet Boys fans too. Like, we just saw them at the Sphere, which we also want to ask you about. But I mean, you have worked with every major artist of our generation. What to you was that, where when they popped, we like to talk about that moment when you popped off, when you feel like things changed for you, that holy shit moment, if you will. What was that moment for you?
I wish I could make this answer more interesting and more brilliant, but it never really occurred to me because as stupid as I was the guy that's shooting a crime scene and had no idea. I had no idea I was creating this sort of wave of new pop at the time because you would make the video and then by the time anyone saw that video, I'm already 2 or 3 other videos deep trying to do the next thing. And I'm just trying to survive. Like these things are coming at me left and right. And I'm busy trying to come up with sets and ideas and I'm getting no sleep. And I'm barely paying attention to what's going on in the world. I'm just trying to make the next thing and the next paycheck, frankly, because I'm a working director. I'm a freelancer. And then a couple of years later, after it's all done, you realize what crazy damage you've done to the pop world. But it's not something you're conscious of as you're doing it. Because unlike other people, like I think the Backstreet Boys, and I love them, but they can at least see from the world. They can see the crowds. They go on stage. They can see the crowds get bigger and bigger and bigger. That doesn't happen to a video director. You just make something and then it goes off into MTV land and you're going to the next one. You're not standing in front of a crowd. You have no idea what's going on. You're just trying to get the next video and make sure that the next idea is good. You're trying to now do Enrique Iglesias. Like you don't know what's going on.
Well, you made a huge impact on us and literally everyone we know. So let it be. Hopefully you've realized by now that you are an icon. Speaking of your process, I mean, it's fascinating to hear how you were inspired to come up with the Everybody music video treatment. Can you walk us through how that normally works for you? Like, do you hear the song and then you think of it? Like, where do you start?
Well, it's changed, but over the years, they used to just send it to me on cassette tape and you'd get like this cassette tape and you would just play it over and over again. Then they came on CDs and things like that. And now it's like this whole process where they send you a link and you got to enter a passcode and it's come back. It's much harder now to listen to it. It's super annoying. And it used to be very easy for me to like walk around, put the cassette tape into a Walkman, go walk a hill. And now I've got to like do this code and I got to be locked into one device. And sometimes it's your phone and then you don't get to hear it all over your room. It's just super annoying. Anyways, but like it starts with that. And then sometimes they give you a little bit of information. They would like to do something about this, or it's like they want you to sing about their dog or make a video about the dog or whatever it is. And then you go back and you just write a treatment. You sit there and you write 2 pages. And the beautiful thing back then is that I could just write on words. I could just write my concept on 2 pages and send it in, and then they would say yes or no. And now you got to put visuals and all this other stuff, which actually lends itself to copying. Because when you put all these visuals together, you're putting references, and then everybody says, make it look like that reference. Didn't happen back then. What happened back then is that I would reference things, but it would be put into this cloudy mind of mine, like my poorly thought out remembrance of things. So it would come all mashed up and weird. And I was too lazy or just didn't have enough time to sort of copy something. So you'd mesh it up. So for instance, like Backstreet Boys, I didn't do any actual references of Phantom of the Opera or The Mummy or anything like that. I just sort of winged it. And so it comes off more original because of how sloppy you are in terms of remembering things.
You recently tweeted I saw a tweet you did about Larger Than Life. And you said, never in a billion years when I made these videos with the Backstreet Boys did I think that one day they would be translated into an immersive, multi-gazillion-dollar high-tech sphere in Las Vegas. And how does it feel to see your concept literally be made larger than life?
It's a bit surreal, but it's also a little distancing because I can't go to that concert. I'm working and I'm booked for the next 3 months.
Oh.
So I'm going to miss that thing. But I've heard about the sphere. I've seen pictures of it. I imagine it's incredibly immersive and mind-blowing. Here's the one thing that I was thinking actually recently. Before I even saw that, I was thinking, man, I made a weird video for those guys because I made them dress up like robots and they're in a spaceship. And what a boy video to send to a band that's really meant for girls. Like what a weirdly like male-centric boy toy type of idea. And do people even like this anymore? But then I saw that and I was like, what? Like, they embraced it. It went bigger and it's just this audience full of everybody screaming at these sort of boy toy images, but still done in a Backstreet Boys way. I was like, okay, well, I guess it still works, but like crazy that it still moves on and has now transformed into something else.
I literally watched Star Wars willingly because of the music video. I was like, Backstreet Boys like Star Wars. I need to like Star Wars and pretend to like space. But I mean, the whole larger than life concept just brought to life in the most insane technologically advanced venue that we have in the country. The robots are in there. I mean, it's really next level.
I mean, like, and trust me, when I made that video, it was already a technological issue of just trying to get that video done at that time.
Right.
In the year 2000 with all those visual effects. And all of a sudden now it's in a kind of like venue that was not even imaginable back when I made it. Like, what is going on? So I'm kind of just amazed by that.
I mean, it's incredible. We're so grateful. And we saw that there's some like parallels between the larger than life music video, the Everybody music video. You brought back Antonio Fargas for it. Like, how do you approach that sort of visual continuity? Obviously, we as fans hang on everything and we love them both. Like, how do you plan that in advance?
Well, the Antonio Vargas story actually came in because he was Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch back previous generation, the Boomers, right? And I ended up using him actually in a Tony video. That's where he first came in. I met him and I got to use some dialogue with him. And I thought he was such a funny actor. He was just hilarious. And then when I came up with the concept for the Thriller version of Backstreet Boys, I was trying to context it. Like, why are they in this haunted castle? So I came up with this whole opening sequence of with the bus breaking down. And I thought it would be funny if we could actually see the bus driver. And because I had just worked with Antonio Vargas, I cast him in it. And he was just so good in it. I thought, okay, well, then I'll put him in the next one too. Just some continuity. I just like Easter eggs. I use the same sort of techniques when I do Taylor Swift too, like try to put in little Easter eggs that tie everything together.
Oh, we were going to ask about some Taylor Swift Easter eggs coming up. But before we get a little out of the Y2K era, I obviously had to ask about your work with Britney. Do you remember when you first met Britney Spears?
Okay, so the first time I ever met Britney Spears was through the record company and they sent me a photo of her.
Wow.
And it was like this cheerleader photo, right? Just this pretty little girl. And then they sent me one videotape of her doing a backflip. And then they sent me the song Baby One More Time. And I wrote this concept where she has a daydream in her high school and then she goes and dances and then she fights a giant robot and then wakes back up. But I had her dress in a Catholic schoolgirl uniform because that was the Jap anime thing that I was really into because they all dressed in Catholic schoolgirl uniforms. It was this weird fetish that the Japanese had. So I wrote that in there. And the record company goes, you know what? They love this concept, but they don't like the giant robot. And I was like, no giant robot, I'm out. They shoot the video without the giant robot, without me. And it turns into Baby One More Time, which is like one of her classic videos. But that's how stupid I was. So like, I'm just socially inept at times. Like, I like what I like. I don't like, and sometimes I make the right call, sometimes I make the wrong call. I don't know. It all works out at the end of the day.
Well, you still had plenty of good work with Britney, even besides that one. I mean, the first one I can think of is Stronger. And I read somewhere that you said that, the initial idea always seems to come from Britney. She always has great ideas. Was she kind of a collaborator with you when coming up with concepts? Was she very involved in that?
Yeah. So the record company wanted me to meet with her. I just bumped into Barry Weiss, who was running Jive Records at the time. I was at MTV Awards. I forgot which year it was. And I bumped him to a party and he goes, oh, Britney is here. And why don't you go meet with her and discuss the next single? That's how it happened back then, right? So then I go to Britney's hotel and I have this idea for the video and it's this big Joan of Arc idea. It's like her with dragons and in the mud and like all these dancers in the mud dancing. And I just go through this big elaborate, she's looking at me nodding, go through that. And at the end of it all, like I say, what do you think? Silence. She goes, I want to dance on a chair and break up with my boyfriend. Drive a car. And I think for a second and I'm like, okay, yes, I can do that. And I think that comes from my training from rap videos because I had nothing in common with any of these gangster rappers. I wasn't killing people. I wasn't selling drugs. I wasn't doing prostitutes. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. But yet I was still able to make videos for that. So I think at that time, in the era of the genius video director, a lot of video directors would have just walked out of the room and said, screw you. It's my way or the highway. This is my art. But I'm more from that school of, well, If I didn't get it the first time, well, what am I missing? And so I'm listening. And frankly, it's funny that like there's so much reverence for me now in 2025 because in the 2000s, I was not known as that guy. There's so many famous directors then that were doing much more in other people's minds, interesting work and artistic work. I was considered the hack. I was. I remember actually hearing one of my video reps at the time. I just heard him next door and she goes, I'm working with Joseph Kahn and he's not a genius like this other blah, blah director. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is my reputation in town. So like, remember, there were like British bands and there were like emo bands and there were hardcore, rock bands and things like that. And I'm the guy doing all these pop videos and rap videos. And remember, so that's not credible work back then. And other companies did not want to sign me either. That was the funny thing. Even though I was kind of making more money than all the other directors, I was not a credible director. So there was no heat on me. In fact, I remember one of the reasons I was my own DP and editor on this stuff is because a lot of DPs did not want to work with me. I know it's hard to conceive from a modern perspective, but I was that illegitimate of an artistic director that nobody just wanted to mess with me. But I was doing my thing and making these videos. And 25 years later, everybody thinks they're like the coolest things ever. But that was not the vibe back then.
We thought they were cool, Joseph. We loved them.
Yeah, the audience, yes. The industry, no.
What is wrong with people? Like, people did that to Backstreet Boys and Britney, though, too, in the day. They were like, it's not real music. Artists. Right. Yeah. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's bad.
I remember dating a girl and playing some Backstreet Boys songs to her, and she thought it was ridiculous. And I was like, okay.
Let us at her.
What about Toxic? What can you tell us about Toxic? That video is just such a staple of pop culture. I could show that to my great-grandma, and she would know that music video. Like, looking back on Toxic, any reflections or thoughts on that?
All right, I'll give you one salacious piece of gossip, a little tidbit, okay? On the very last night of Toxic, after we had wrapped up the video, Britney and I had like a moment in the trailer where, like we're celebrating a little bit. And I'm not a very good celebrator. I don't really drink. I'm awkward around like girls in general. And someone like Britney Spears, I have no idea what to say. So I'm just sitting there and then I'm saying, thank you, good shoot, good night. And by the way, the previous video, I think I was one of the few people that realized she was dating Justin Timberlake because on Stronger, like I go into a trailer again for one of those particular moments and I see this little kid there and it's Justin Timberlake. I'm like, okay, what's he doing here? Right. So anyways, so I say goodbye. And then a couple hours later, she gets married to that dude in Las Vegas.
From high school.
Jason.
Yeah. So apparently he was driving the entire time as we were shooting. And then she flies into Vegas and gets married that night. Right. And I remember like there was all these notes that she was going to do to the edit, right? But the firestorm of controversy was so crazy that the record company said, just use your edit, just print it, get this out here now. So the video that you see was going to get re-edited with everyone's notes because there's always record company, there's Britney note, there's anything like that. But because of the firestorm of that thing, what you saw was the director's cut.
Wow. I did not realize it was that close. That is such great tea. What about the nude bodysuit? Was that like, did you know that was going to just blow all of our minds?
Yeah. So when I shot that, I was just thinking, okay, I'm doing a spy series thing. So, and she wanted to do the diamond thing and didn't really know what that meant, frankly. So I said, okay, I'm just going to put this shiny background, keep it simple. I don't know what to do with this, but I'll just make it shiny and all that. And brushed aside everybody. I'm the camera operator. So I'm the only person who saw that in the universe. But I remember like they sent me a picture of it, but I didn't really know what I was looking at. I didn't know if she was nude or not. Not that it mattered. That shows you how much like, like you almost turn into like, like there's certain guys that have a certain attitude, but then there's like gynecologists, like
you're like, just numb to everything.
I basically turned into a gynecologist, and I'm like precision and just like trying to solve the issue. So I don't actually know what she was wearing. To this day, people say, oh, she was nude. I'm like, was she? I don't remember. Like I was just trying to frame this image, So to this day, I'm not sure. Everybody says she was nude. She's not. I don't remember.
I didn't even know it was possible that she would have been nude, but no one knows because you were the only one who was there. So
yeah, and I honestly was not paying attention.
A true professional.
Okay, last question about Britney. There's some lore around this question. I know you've tweeted about it. you've called the unreleased director's cut of Perfume one of Britney's best videos ever. What makes it so special?
It's a little bit of immaturity on my part in 2012 when I made that, because what ends up happening is that every time you work with an artist, you try to push them a little higher, a little different, a little more in dangerous areas. So it was the first Britney video that was less bubblegum, and it was a bit more La Femme Nikita. It was a bit more emotional, and it had kind of an emotional arc, but she gets beaten up in it, and she sacrifices herself and all that. And I quite liked the video at the time. It may not have aged that well, to be honest with you. Like 15 years later, I think there are variations of that video. But I think at the time that it came out, it would have been really interesting to see. But I don't know if it's valid 15 years later, whatever it is now, 10 years later or something like that. But I really shouldn't have let that out of the bag. Those are the early days of Twitter. No one really understood the power of Twitter. And now people are much more refined in the way they interact with the public, including myself, frankly. So it's not something I would ever tweet in today's environment.
He's been media trained.
That was raw, stupid. Like, what is this thing? What is this? You write some words on and you click send and you have no idea what's going to happen.
God, I love the early days of Twitter. We learned so much about Lindsay Lohan, Lady Gaga.
But now we all know, and we've learned our lessons.
We absolutely have. Well, what about your work with Taylor Swift? You've said somewhere that working with Taylor was like literally one of the first times that you felt someone actually spoke the language of filmmaking that you've been doing over the last 25 years. Like, what made that creative connection so unique with her compared to other artists that you've worked with?
Like how I am the first generation of filmmakers that looked at rock and roll, with music videos with an expectation. I think Taylor Swift may be the first generation of pop star that only knew pop stars with music videos. Because even Britney Spears would have seen pop stars before there were music videos. But with Taylor Swift, she had seen Britney Spears, she had seen Madonna, she had seen Michael Jackson, she had seen all those videos, and she had studied those things. So there's this wonderful revelation to me, because I didn't know what it would be like to work with her. And I remember we were shooting Blank Space, which was the first one, and I would edit on set and put these edits together, and every time an edit would go into the shot, she would light up. I could see the circuitry in her brain fire away, and it made sense to her. So as I was filmmaking, she was like this wonderful receptacle and an acknowledger of what was happening. And that had never happened to me with any artist before, because the other artists weren't filmmakers. They weren't speaking that language. It was kind of a new language, but Taylor understood that language. And I found that extremely fascinating and extremely rare. But it's not that anyone can do that, because I still work with a lot of artists and a lot of them don't know that either. She is truly an exceptional brain. Like I always said, there's a handful of geniuses that I work with, and she is truly one of them. Like she could have been anything other than a pop star. She could have been a great CEO. She could have been a stockbroker. Like she could have put that mind to all sorts of things, but she put that mind to making herself a billionaire. So good for her.
I mean, we can definitely
for her.
see that in her lyrics. I mean, you won a Grammy working with Taylor. Tell us, what's your favorite project you guys worked on together?
Okay. So, you know what? Every one of those videos were so fun to make. I did 8 videos with her. I did a commercial, 8 videos, and there's actually one video that got scrapped. Yeah.
For a song that is out or for like an unreleased song?
Unreleased song. Like
Okay.
we were starting on that song, and then she pivoted and goes, it's not this song that should be the next single. It should be Ready for It. So we were doing a song for King of My Heart, and we actually shot it all out. And then she just realized that's not the song, and then switched and went to Ready for It. So we shot a whole video and scrapped it. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. That is crazy. So which one is your favorite if you had to pick?
It's like saying which one of my 8 kids are my favorite. It really is so hard. They're all so different on their own different way. Because I love Look What You Made Me Do.
Oh,
I love Wildest Dreams. I love Blank Space. It's like they're great experiences for me as a filmmaker. And when I say experiences, it has less to do with making them, but the end result. Because the objective of each one was so different. Like Blank Space was clearly this sort of like hyper-real fashion shoot, the ultimate mansion video. Because I had been trying to do mansion videos for ages, and I was never able to nail it. And I remember like talking to Taylor about this mansion video. I said, like, but if we're going to do a mansion video, it's got to be the mansion. Because it was so hard, because you rent these things, right? And who's going to let you into their like $200 million mansion? If you've got $200 million mansion, you don't need the money. You don't need to rent it out, right? So the people that rent out their mansions, the ones that need the money, and they're always a little crap. They're not real mansions. They're the mansions you can rent out for $20,000, $50,000 a day. But what's that to a billionaire? Nothing, But we had this one mansion that turned out to be the largest mansion in America. And it was really a hotel. So we rented it out and turned it into a mansion. And it's like, I remember just making that. And but anyways, I was talking to Taylor. I said, we got to travel somewhere, Europe, wherever. She goes, France? I'd love to go to France. Her attitude was budget was not the issue. Just find me the mansion. And we found it in New York and we flew out there and shot it. That's very rare for artists because number one, they don't want to spend the money, but two, they don't have the time. But she would devote time. She would literally block off chunks of her life to make these. She cared. That's amazing. I never get that with artists anymore. You got to fit it within their touring schedule and they get you one day. And if they're shooting in Chicago, well, the video gets done in Chicago and that's it. Wildest Dreams is super cinematic. I finally got to make that romance movie that I've always wanted to make in my life. Casted a movie star like Scott Eastwood. And that was just really amazing experience where look what you do. I finally got to make the most expensive video I could possibly make with an unlimited funds and come up with the wildest images I could possibly get to. So, I'm grateful for every one of those videos and every one of them were completely different experiences.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to ask you, how do you keep it fresh? But it sounds like you just let your imagination sort of take hold.
Well, with the Taylor stuff, I'll tell you that there was a lot of pressure because I do know that everyone was expecting something radically different each one. And if the video wasn't going to be better than the previous one, at least it had to be its own complete entity. And that was just a radical amount. I remember every time she would ask me to do a video, there's a certain level of panic because now, okay, I've got the gig, but, am I going to disappoint everyone? So you put this immense amount of pressure to come up with the next idea. And sometimes there's weird personal pivot. On Reputation, the second album, you'll notice there are no love interests because, it was a point of time in her life where you put anyone up on screen being her love interest, that person starts rumors and innuendo, and she was fighting all those allegations. So I'm making all these love videos without lovers, and that was hard. So you just pile on a ton of baggage, and each one gets harder and harder to make.
We love to talk about the Easter eggs of it all. I mean, her videos are notorious for hiding things sometimes years in advance. Do you even know all the Easter eggs that have been put in there? How does that come to life with someone like Taylor? Yeah,
well, generally everything that goes on screen has a reason. And that's one of the things that she and I bonded is that she likes the specificity of my camera work and the fact that every single shot is there for a reason. And so it gives her an opportunity to adjust it and put, graphics or ideas. And sometimes we discuss it in explicit detail. There are still things about, well, look what you made me do that are secret little in-jokes and jabs at certain people that only that person knows. But I've never seen anyone discuss. And I will not say anything because I'll take
We won't pry. Yeah.
So.
Wow. This has just been such an incredible conversation for us. And we would love to know what's next for you. What else are you working on? What can we see you doing?
Well, I am working on some videos for a secret artist that I can't mention. Not Taylor.
There's that media training. Here it comes.
So I'm doing some videos. I'm doing some Super Bowl commercials, because I mostly do commercials for a living and writing some TV shows, writing some movies. I'm just very busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on, just enjoying filmmaking and hopefully just constantly pushing myself to do better.
Wow. That's all you've been doing, it seems. So we're so excited to see what else you have up your sleeve. We're so excited to go see Ick in theaters July 27th through July 29th.
You're an icon. Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you for having an interest in my work.
Okay, that was our conversation with Joseph Kahn. Mary and I are fangirling. I think we're having a pinch me moment right now. Mary, we have talked to Howie Dorough of Backstreet Boys, Chris Kirkpatrick of NSYNC, and the Joseph Kahn all within the last month. That's crazy.
Y2K. And today, Legends. What an incredible and illuminating discussion. He was so funny, so witty, so sharp, so humorous.
We were just saying how he's self-deprecating and it's so funny. But can you imagine shitting on Joseph Kahn? I hope
who's
those
laughing
people
now?
Yeah, who's laughing now? It pisses me off. If little 8-year-old Kelsey could have decked someone for shit-talking Joseph Kahn, she would have. And what's so interesting about Joseph Kahn is, and I should have asked him this, but he really set the tone for directors of music videos, like becoming a thing. Like he would put his name on those music videos, and he was a star in his own right to our generation because he would put his name on his stuff. So we knew who he was. I can't tell you like any other music video director except maybe the ones that were on like MTV behind the video.
I only know him and David Myers.
Yeah. I mean, how incredible. I love that he talked about Backstreet Boys. I love that his music video for Larger Than Life is living on in the Sphere residency. If you've seen our videos, you know that the grand finale during Everybody, which is kind of funny, but I love that it's also a Joseph Kahn directed music video. They have those yellow robots that Nick Carter was dancing with in the music video, like dozens of them dancing to the Everybody iconic choreo in the Sphere of Las Vegas in front of 20,000 screaming fans who see those robots as like an emblem of their childhood.
Iconic. I also was shocked to find out that he like came up with the idea for Baby One More Time, basically.
I know.
And then walked away.
And we were talking to Tanya Barron, who is one of Britney's dancers in the Baby One More Time music video, about the treatment, about starring in that music video. I feel like we have so many different perspectives now of the Baby One More Time era and that moment right before Britney really popped off. And thank you to Joseph for talking to us. And you guys really should see this movie, Ick. I do not like scary movies. So when I saw the trailer, I got a little nervous that, you know, sometimes in horror movies, like the first 10 minutes, you're like, wow, I love this movie. It's going to be so great. And then it gets really scary and dark. This is not like that. He described his own movie perfectly, which is you can really watch it with a bunch of different ages. It's not like you're going to have nightmares about it, but it makes you think. And good movies do that. Good music videos do that. And Joseph Kahn has been doing that for us. He's been making us think, making us dance in front of our TVs since we were old enough to watch TV, I feel like. What an icon. Jinx.
I can say. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Support Joseph. Go see his movie. Ick is incredible. Thank you for supporting us and for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to see clips, make sure you're following us at When They Popped Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you guys have any, we're still getting like a zillion DMs about the Sphere from opening weekend. We have posted all of our tips. Everyone's question is, I want to get front row at the Sphere. Well, we tell you how to do that in our latest episode, answering your FAQs from the Sphere. So check that out if you haven't already. We'll be posting some more videos, some more perspectives. We went 3 nights in a row, so we have 3 different perspectives and experiences to share with you all. So make sure you're listening to that. If you have any questions that we haven't answered, DM us When They Popped Pod, find us on TikTok, or find us on Patreon, where you have a little bit more access to us. We'll respond a little bit faster. And we have some fun behind the scenes video, and we have an episode that is exclusive just to our Patreon subscribers, live from Vegas. So make sure you're subscribed there. Thank you all so much for listening. And a huge thank you again to Joseph Kahn for just being who he is and sharing his brilliance with the world. We're so grateful to him for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.